There's an overwhelming amount of music available for literally anyone to listen to. The internet has expanded access to hundreds of years of musical achievement through just a couple clicks. But in that ever-growing ocean of sounds, there's an underbelly, a place on the seabed that attracts the music that doesn't fit in with the majority. Music that tends to confuse and alienate the average listener. But this doesn't discredit the merit they have. In fact, the music you find buried under everything else is usually the most interesting. Welcome to Music Oddities, a series I'm starting on this channel where we look at 8 different strange and lesser known releases, artists, and general music related pieces of media that I find fascinating. Disclaimer, I'd like to really focus on music that has seen less coverage online, so don't expect me to cover, I don't know, fucking everywhere at the end of the time. But if you guys want me to continue this series, feel free to send me recommendations and such that you think would fit well with these videos, and I'll make sure to shout out anyone who sends me something that I'll end up covering. And I don't enjoy pushing incentives, but if this video can get to 50 likes, I will 100% make a second part. So without further ado, let's take a journey across the seabed and uncover some of music's most interesting finds. You're watching Claude.
Look at this dude.
Alvin Lucier was an American experimental composer whose work primarily explored the physical properties of sound itself, with a more specific interest in psychoacoustics, which is the study of how sounds are perceived by the human auditory system. While Lucier has a very extensive catalog of compositions that accomplish just that, he is best known for his 1969 vocal work, I Am Sitting in a Room. I Am Sitting in a Room is a work of sound art that more or less serves as a study of how spaces can play a large factor in how sound is perceived by a listener. In the piece, which only consists of 2 tape recorders and a mic, and the man himself, Lucier begins by recording himself on one tape reading this phrase.
I am sitting in a room different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my speaking voice, and I am going to play it back into the room again and again until the resonant frequencies of the room reinforce themselves, so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural, resonant frequencies of the room, articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to smooth out any irregularities my speech might have.
As you could probably imagine, Lucier does just that, replaying the same audio and recording it on the other tape and so on. Over time, the room's resonant frequencies become increasingly more prominent until the original phrase is left unintelligible. I'm Sitting in a Room remains one of the most well-known, but still pretty niche experimental compositions that directly examine how every room or space affects how humans perceive sound. The composition is unique in the sense that anyone can try to replicate it and end up with a different result by the end. Performing it in a church hall compared to a small enclosed room would render different frequencies and tones due to many different factors such as the room's size, geometry, echo, dryness, etc. It also serves as a way for Lucier to make peace with his stutter, as he states that the composition's main purpose is not to showcase physics, but to smooth out the irregularities in his own speech. Alvin Lucier would pass away in 2021 at the age of 90 years old, leaving a legacy behind that changed the way psychoacoustics had been viewed, but even after his death, his musical output wasn't complete. In 2025, a group of Australian artists and scientists would create Revivification, an installment that took Lucier's white blood cells and reprogrammed them into stem cells, which were then transformed into cerebral organoids that mimic the human brain. These organoids were then linked to transductors and mallets, which would respond to neural signals from the organoids and would hit brass plates, creating a infinitely random atmosphere of sound. While the concept of creating brain-like organoids from the blood of a dead musician to create music sounds really dystopian. Lucier had been working with the team behind the installation for 3 years before his passing and was very much okay with its existence. Revivification is also meant to be viewed as art first, with the team behind it stating that they hope the project opens the doors for more research into neural data and how creativity exists outside the human body. While the installation is slightly questionable ethically, I think the fact that it's Alvin Lucier specifically helps it feel a little less terrifying. I mean, come on, shit like this was this guy's entire life. Imagine going to the Michael Jackson neural sonification installation and being disappointed that it was just a bunch of brass plates being hit at random and not at all the musical ideas that never escaped his fucking cranium.
Goo goo gaga.
Have you ever wanted to know what the music made by an unborn baby sounds like? No? There goes the whole video. Well, in 2019, Elizabeth Hart of the band Psychic Ills and her husband, Ivan Diaz-Mathy, would embark to create the first album ever released by someone still in the womb. Basically, how this worked was during Hart's 3rd trimester of her pregnancy, the couple would use biosonic technology to pick up electromagnetic impulses from her womb. Those impulses would then be converted to MIDI data, which would then be sent to synths being played by math. With him explaining that, it's like if they were the musicians choosing what to play, and the synthesizers are the sounds that I choose to apply to the information that is being picked up. The resulting music is actually pretty ominous and atmospheric, and the album itself would release in 2021, with Luca Yupankwi only being around a year and a half old. If this kid actually grows up to be a musician, it would be such a wild flex to have on people. I mean, like, Bjork recorded her first album at 10. Bitch, I wasn't even out my mom's womb yet when I recorded mine. I've been about this music life since before my life. I am music.
What did he say?
In 1964, Dutch physician Harm A. Drost would produce a record that answered the question, what does speech sound like, after the removal of the larynx? The larynx, more commonly referred to as the voice box, is the organ in the back of your neck that houses your vocal cords, so you could assume that without it, you couldn't speak. Well, this record works as a lecture on various ways one could achieve this, showcasing different examples of people achieving this feat, and highlights the various ways voices have been achieved without a larynx at the time of the record's release.
I can also sing a little bit. Hold, say, oh, no, working, live, okay.
While it's a little bit of a stretch to even call this music, as it's really just a lecture with audio examples throughout, with a handful of those audio examples containing music, its existence is a really fascinating look into the ways speech can be achieved without the thing that can make you speak, even if its information is really outdated.
Real trap shit.
The Wits and Wisdom of Ronald Reagan was an anonymously released vinyl through the UK label Magic Records in 1980. But what looks like an entire album's worth of Reagan speeches and wisdom is actually a piece of really funny political satire. As when you actually go to listen to the former president's wits and wisdom, you're greeted with nothing. The joke is that Ronald Reagan has neither wit nor wisdom. So in reality, Magic Records was created as a sub-label for the UK punk label Stiff Records to literally just release this LP, with the label's own name, Magic, being a reference to the Ronald Reagan quote, "If it's a success, then it must be magic," which also serves as the slogan for the label. The physical vinyl itself even had grooves pressed on both sides to give the illusion that there was actually content in it. Though Stiff Records does playfully hint at the release's deception with a blurb that reads, "Warning, you may or may not hear something interesting on this record." Stiff has a very extensive history of being provocative and tongue-in-cheek with their image. Being a 80s punk label after all, this is very on brand, and reportedly the vinyl would go on to sell 30,000 copies, but I couldn't find a verifiable source on this exact number, but I can almost believe that this could be true. However you view Ronald Reagan, I think it's acceptable to say that this is a very good attempt at political satire that doesn't touch touch upon any social or political issues, and instead just serves to troll fans of Reagan at the time, with the added knowledge that this would release just 1 month after Reagan would win the US presidential election. I think Stiff knew exactly what they were doing. And while you can argue it's a little exploitative to trick people into buying a record with nothing on it, I mean, politics completely aside, like, even if you rocked with Reagan in the 80s, who is looking at a double-sided vinyl consisting only of Ronald Reagan speeches and thinking, damn, I want this in my possession. I want to put this next to the Velvet Underground and Nico right now. Boom, on my wall. Fucked up in the crib, bumping Ronald Reagan.
You two fuckers just made the biggest mistake.
In 1997, Russian art duo Komar and Melamid, along with American neuroscientist and composer Dave Soldier, created 2 songs that, through an online survey, answered the question of what the most wanted and unwanted music would sound like. This idea originally started in 1994, when Komar and Melamid created a similar project titled The Most Wanted Paintings, which similarly surveyed people in America and afterwards dozens of other countries to figure out what the general public sought to see and to not see in paintings. When an art gallery owner asked for a CD, they then teamed up with Dave Soldier, who suggested that they adapt the original Most Wanted paintings into music. The resulting Most Wanted and Unwanted songs are what audiences in 1997 liked and hated in music, or just the 500 or so people who had taken the survey. The Most Wanted song is a pretty cliche 90s soft rock adult contemporary song that could really just be classified as easy listening music, stuff that you'd hear in a big box department store or Sears. It was the 90s. It is such an inoffensive song that it kind of loops back around into being super grating to listen to just because of how normal it's trying to be. On the other hand, the Most Unwanted song is nearly 22 minutes long. I'm struggling to summarize it in my own words. I'd recommend you just listen to it on your own. It is a treat. According to Soldier, at the time of writing, there was fewer than 200 people in the world who would be expected to like the Most Unwanted song. Unsurprisingly, the Most Unwanted song was, of the two, the more popular song, due to the obvious curiosity people had on what statistically would be the least wanted song. It's an extremely long, eclectic, and tonally dissonant piece of music, but the sheer insanity of it is what draws its spectacle, compared to its counterpart that is bogged down by its lack of anything unique. However, the survey does prove that the general populace prefers moderate and easy to listen to, safe-sounding music, a sentiment that still does ring pretty true today. I mean, shit, if they did this survey today, I guarantee the Most Wanted song would just be like Rod Wave.
Oh yeah!
On the topic of eclecticness, Don Salsa was an American band formed in 1993 by then still high schoolers Tim Smullins, Jason Schimmel, Jeff Attridge, Doug Smullins, and Rob Hondrick. The band, based in the South Bay area of Los Angeles, would annually perform extremely bizarre and off-the-wall shows at their high school until in 1997 they would release their first and only album, Koolaide, Moustache, and Jonestown, a 75-minute behemoth of, all of this. Yeah, so this album is infamously known for its sheer number of music genres and styles it manages to play over the course of its runtime. Added to the fact that throughout its 3-year recording process, all of the band members were mostly teenagers. The first track alone, The Deck, is a 30-minute long beast of a song that constantly switches from genre to genre. I'll put up this Reagan music review that summarizes the entire song because it's a lot. The rest of the album's runtime is also equally as batshit crazy as The Deck, just split up into shorter segments and samples before ending with the audition tape Rob Hondrick, the lead vocalist, did for the band. If you're familiar with Mr. Bungle or Naked City, two very similar bands that are also known for their eclecticness, then you can see the similarities between Don Salsa, as many of the members of Don Salsa were pretty big fans of Mr. Bungle. It's not necessarily a good album by any means, but there's a lot of really impressive musicianship considering the fact that this project consisted of only high schoolers. And I also bet that they fucking knew what they were doing. It's an avant-garde mess of an album, but its absurdity makes it special. This was a passion project of a bunch of LA high schoolers who just wanted to have fun making some bullshit. Don Salsa would disband in 1997, shortly after the release of Koolaide, Moustache, and Jonestown, and Tim and Jason would find success with their band of Stratosphere shortly after.
I'm an NYU film school graduate.
Dave Soldier is back, and with the help of school teacher and flutist Katie Down, had her class of 2 to 9-year-old school children from Brooklyn create Aliens Took My Mom, a 30-minute improvised concept album about aliens invading New York. Everything you hear on Aliens Took My Mom was composed and played only by the class, taking up the name Tangerine Orchestra. Aw, Tangerine Orchestra. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. With some added advice from Soldier and Down. It's also not good. I mean, it's made by a bunch of kids who were just told to start playing instruments. But like, Luca Yupankwi made a sonically interesting dark ambient album at -3 months old, and you guys are like, what, like 5? Like, you should know how to read sheet music by now and play fucking Mozart. I won't be taking any excuses. Tangerine Orchestra isn't Dave Soldier's only foray into coaching groups of children to create music. In fact, he's gone around the world and into poor communities to allow kids to just have fun making music with no restraints. A few years after Tangerine Orchestra, the Hip-Hop Rascals would be born. Consisting of 5 to 10-year-olds from East Harlem, the project allowed the kids involved to create their own small rap groups and write lyrics, program the drums, and play instruments, once again with little coaching from Soldier. It's actually a really fun time to listen to the Hip-Hop Rascals compared to Tangerine Orchestra, partly because they're kind of like actually songs.
I'm the man with the mic with the chicken wing. I'm the man with the mic with the chicken wing. First you cut it, then you fry it, then you cook.
Stalaggh, later known as Gulag, was a noise collective formed in the Netherlands in 2000, supposedly consisting of the top Dutch and Belgian industrial and black metal artists of the time, although this has remained unconfirmed as the band remained completely anonymous. With the names Stalaggh and Gulag standing for Stalaggh Global Holocaust and Gulag Global Holocaust, the band was formed to showcase only the bleakest parts of humanity, to definitively create the soundtrack of misanthropy and nihilism. So, did they achieve that? Their music is not that good. Even in the context of noise and power electronics, genres that are infamous for how oversaturated they are, Stalaggh is just boring. This RIM review states that it sounds exactly like one of those Halloween sound effect albums that you can find on Spotify that has screams or other spooky sounds overlaid over unrelated music, except replace that unrelated music with some very basic noise and occasional random drumming. But hey, noise isn't for everyone, and if it's really just lazy noise music, why am I covering it? Well, it's not the music itself that makes Stalaggh so interesting, it's the backstory and how those sounds were recorded. Dim the lights. It's about to get dark, bro. So, according to Stalaggh, many of the screams and wails present throughout their music are actually recordings of real psychiatric patients, victims of SA, and even the screams of children. Many of these instances are described in detail through this interview with Vice, which I'll go ahead and read some. As if you can tell by the tone of my voice, there's no fucking way any of this is real. But alas, since there's no concrete proof that it isn't real, if you want to suspend your belief and think that you're actually listening to real mental hospital patients screaming, it might make Stalagg's music 10% scarier. It may be 5% better, I don't know.
We have used mental patients on all of our recordings. We want the pain and suffering in the vocals to be real, not acted. One of our members works in a mental institution in Holland, so this is how we got access and permission to record. All patients who have worked with us gave their full written permission. It is not an official legal document we have them sign, just a statement that they have gave permission to record with us. That is enough for us.
Yeah, so I don't think any mental institution would ever give anyone permission to just record patients screaming, even if the patients are down to participate. And the whole thing with one of the members working at a mental institution is immediately retconned a couple questions later.
To persuade the institution to let the patients work with us, we let them think we are doing a conceptual piece of art. This is why it takes so much time to make a recording. We have to write a fake proposal. Sometimes it takes over a year to get permission to record their screams. We would get in a lot of trouble if the institution found out what we were actually using the screams for.
Why would you have to persuade the institution if one of your band members already worked there? Isn't he part of the institution? I feel like that would give him more leverage to get permission. And didn't they just say that they only need a written approval from a patient? Why do they need a whole proposal now? What?
We always tell vocalists who participate on our projects what Stalaggh is about. Most of them agree with our ideology. Their mental illness makes them hate humans and their society, so it's not hard to convince them to become part of our project.
You know, I'd like to think that most people who are in mental institutions aren't all misanthropic psychopaths. And even just the concept of going to record a mentally ill person screaming for your own benefit to make the scariest music ever is pretty exploitative. And Stalaggh does bring this up in the Vice interview, stating that many of the patients actually enjoyed working with them as the recording session served as a form of therapy. And I would partly believe this idea that the project was overall beneficial for the participants, if not for them openly admitting that they also used real children screaming in their music. Allegedly. They probably didn't. Apparently they had to use the name of a well-known composer, Luther Fear, who also isn't even a real person, to even persuade whatever youth mental institution to get on board with what they were doing, going as far as to saying that they were using the children's screams in a classical piece. In some crazy, not made up way, the institution actually got on board with it, and basically Stalaggh put 30 kids in a room and just told them to scream as much as they could, stopping only when the kids started to get emotional and start crying. With one account of a young girl who started clawing the floor with her nails until she started bleeding. Sure, bro. I could unpack all the outlandish claims present in this Vice article, but you can sum most of them up to just, yeah, so we just kind of went to mental institutions and asked people if we could record patients screaming, and then they said yes, and then we did, and now we have these guys screaming on our album because it's scary, because they're schizophrenic. Mental health is scary. If not for the creepypasta-esque backstory, Stalaggh would not have the reputation it does, as at its core, it's just another noise project with really nothing going for it. I've seen a few people actually praise some of the more black metal adjacent elements of Stalaggh, but other than that, it's really just another boring noise project, and I'd like to think that the people behind it very much knew that it wouldn't get any or much attention at all, so they had to come up with a disturbing backstory to give the album and the project some form of evil, scary disturbingness to it, but like, it doesn't work. With that, our first exploration of the oddest pieces of music has been completed. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to the channel if you haven't already. I plan on continuing this series, but as I said at the beginning, it would be really dope if we could reach 50 likes on this video. It really does help a ton, and it allows my videos to be noticed by the algorithm. So help me out, squad, help me out. I'm gonna try to keep putting out new videos every other Friday for now. If I eventually get faster at producing these videos, I might try to do every Friday, but for now, bi-weekly is the current schedule. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Stay swaggy.